Yolundan kalgan söz, ezelden beri durmaz. Yolundan kalgan söz, akmaralayda buyurulur. Düşmanға salған çulgan, çoğun altayda tuğulup. Denesi türüp, koygun yer, özün kırılmazdın. Telligi teng çıkıp, şayrıldığın şeri çıkıp, maralın karama buyurulup, man yurtay düşmandın, bit algan.
Question of time is a question of life, death, and our entire existence. And thus, it is a weighty problem, perceived not only by academics and scientists, but rather by the most part of mankind. Both the internal and external life proceeds in time. Without it, you can go nowhere. Time is often spoke of by philosophers and poets alike, but perhaps the latter have addressed the issue in the most eloquent of tongues. Shakespeare, for example, wrote, "Devouring time, blunt thou the lion's paws, and make the earth devour her own sweet brood. Pluck the keen teeth from the fierce tiger's jaws, and burn the long-lived phoenix in her blood. Make glad and sorry seasons as thou fleets, and do what thou will, swift-footed time, to the wide world and all her fading sweets. But I forbid thee one most heinous crime. O carve not with thy hours my love's fair brow, nor draw no lines there with thine antique pen. Him in thy curse untainted do allow, for beauty's pattern to succeeding men. Yet do thy worst, old time, despite thy wrong. My love shall, in verse, ever live young." Present-day emotional tie to time is peculiar not only to us. The peculiarities of time manifested themselves to mankind thousands of years ago when he first walked the earth. However, the Egyptian philosophers, who had already approached the matter of time, saw the question in a different light. Everything is afraid of time, but time is afraid of the pyramids. From the ancient Egyptians' point of view, time's an illusion of consciousness. In truth, there is only eternity, the pyramids being the resting place for the pharaohs. As an ancient Egyptian sage pronounced, the universe passes through one cycle of development, then burns in a world fire, and everything is begun again. When Friedman, the philosopher, reflected on the possibility of the universe as a pulsing entity, constantly contracting to a point, and then expanding, he too, against one's will, recalled legends of the Indian mythology of time. In ancient times, there were neither notions of development of the universe or of time as an historical process, though it comes as no surprise that philosophers in the ancient world debated these concepts of times as they are debated and incorporated into today's scientific disputes. In the words of Heraclitus, nobody plunges into the same river twice, indicating that all things are passing eternally. The Greek philosopher's opinion remains today indisputably true. However, it is also equally reasonable to assume his pupil's, Cratylus' view, that you cannot even once go into the river, because while you are going into the river, you and the river change. These were the prevalent thoughts of the pre-Socratic times at Athena's famous Platonic Academy in the 6th century before Christ. Before the impact of Newton and later Einstein, philosophers argued whether time was absolute or relative, and if absolute, was it coloured by mythology? As Plato accurately noted, time is a regulating element of the universe. The philosophical theory is the absolute opposite to the conception of history put forth by those of the Einstein's school of relativity. As a Roman saying goes, all roads lead to Rome. If we make some changes to this saying and refer instead to philosophers and philosophy, we can say all roads lead to Aristotle. Aristotle was the founder of the concept of relativity. According to Aristotle, time is a number of movements in relation to the past and future, time being the property of such movements. How can it not be paradoxical? One of the most beautiful and at the same time most perceptive concepts of time was created by Augustine in the 4th century BC. Augustine used to say, "When I contemplate time, everything seems straightforward and comprehensible. But every time I try to narrate about this, I fail." But the philosopher was wrong. He did succeed. Listen, the future does not exist yet, and we do not have the past. It is already gone. The past is a gateway which the future passes over to the past, and vice versa. The past passes through the present to the future. In one sense, Augustine was a predecessor to Einstein in terms of science and its relation to time. Augustine asked, how was the universe created? And is it possible to understand this process of creation occurring in time? The conclusion that he reached was that it is impossible. Let us assume that the universe did not yet exist, and time existed. Why then did God create the universe at one particular time, and not in another time? It remains unclear. The process of creation of the world as a temporary process cannot be understood. Augustine, however, proposed that time was created together with the universe, together with matter. Over the centuries, the scientific theory of time has certainly developed. However, the scientific theory on time which was first formulated in physics was based not on the idea of relativity, but on the idea of absoluteness of time. This was Newton's laws, his mechanical picture of the world. According to Einstein, time depends on physical processes. In Einstein's special theory of relativity, he showed that time could be slowed down. In a famous experiment using extremely accurate atomic clocks, proof was given to support this. One clock was put on a very fast aircraft and one on the ground. After the aircraft completed a journey round the Earth, its clock was compared with the time on the atomic clock on the ground. The one on the aircraft was always a few nanoseconds behind the one on the ground. We enter the past and emerge in the future. Where are we? It is this question that art addresses. After all, in life, everything has motion. Everything passes by. But in the memory, everything halts. Time and memory intersect in art only. This is where the past is a measure of the present. That is why the past, in art, is categorized as the ideal. The titans of history have done their duty before art. And what about our generation? This is a thought that makes every thinking artist uneasy. The directive linkage of time, past to present. Reconstructions of the past by contemporary creative methods and artistic generalizations through memory. These are the signs of the 20th and 21st century cultures. A new integrity has evolved, the widest metacultural range on the basis of over-deliberation and unification into one system of the past, present and future. Chronotop is a universal method for contemporary culture, which is captive by time. The parallel dramatic art is an essential sign of the creativity of prominent but absolutely different contemporary authors. Aitmatov, Snicke, Spielberg. In general, the logic of art, contemporary in particular, plays spontaneously with space, time, causality and consequences. It reaches the extremes of being and moreover the very extremes of existence. This is where the today's art relates to the contemporary epos, of which Chinggis Aitmatov spoke about. In his creativity, the morality of a hero, while relating to the eternal values of myth, tradition and legend, acquire itself the right for eternity. The hero asserts his choice, even though it costs life. The soul and the universe are inseparable. Aitmatov's subject of moral maximization is aimed against a man's ill, with his emptiness, against mankind's of all time. An artist of today, when the fate of the human civilization is under consideration, one way or another, thinks within the scale of the cultural process. The cosmic boat Earth enters its third millennium. Space, time, and life are pulsing in its sails. They are unstable and penetrable as thoughts, air, and the ocean. The vision of the world arranged by an author, known or unknown, splits up and then again meets in one focus, the focus of time, namely literature, music, and painting, as the art of national metaphors, can truly deal with the cosmic form of historic time, the persuasive power common to all mankind. But epos, beyond controversy, is an older genre of art, a meta-genre, arranged for human tests. The world of heroes of the epos extends into the past and the future. If it is true that any language is the embodiment of time, then the language of epos is an embodiment of historic synchronism, because the ancient epos is always modern. The artistic chronicle of a nation hides the agonizing spiritual work of a narrator МАНАС behind the thickness of time and space, thousands of lives and fates. The МАНАС epos was created at the banks of the river known as the Great Silk Road. Caravans of hope flowed and passed along the river as time itself passed. Hopes were made for a mutual understanding and a dialogue in the immense stretch of the Eurasian continent. The cultural dialogue between East and West, a dialogue of time, left as a legacy defining the philosophy of modern man, and is the backbone of art nowadays. An ocean of knowledge, of nature, of human and space is behind the simple and at the same time complex symbols of nomadism. The sign system of contemporary art is one more way of understanding the history of an ancient nation, its unique culture and all-sufficient perception. Every sign tanga is a peculiar clot of human energy, the flight of an artist and a crossing point for time and space. Tamga is a source of vigor and tenderness. Manas is a tamga of eternity and grandeur, generosity and inspiration, a warrior and a chieftain. We have left behind an epoch of accumulation of spiritual and material values, and entered an epoch that will show us how we will use it. We are at the break of time, and the new millennium will be the proof of this. In other words, before there was a way from ourselves into a world of space. Today we are on our way to ourselves into a world of time.